You may have beautiful facilities, exceptional music, inspiring preaching. You could hold numerous community outreach events, contribute hundreds of hours in community service, make thousands of phone calls to your neighbors, but eventually you need visitors. No visitors, no growth. No growth, no church. So if less than 25% return within 6 weeks of your first visit, it may indicate a big problem in your welcoming environment. So newcomers, again, we're getting super practical, and I promise you our team will email this numbers to you because there's a lot of numbers we're about to say. So newcomers must have 7+ friends in church within 6 friends to be fully assimilated. So you want somebody to stay in your church, get them 7 friends. And again, the stats change once it hits 5. So under 5, there's a serious percentage that they're not going to stay within the first year. So you got to get above 5. Man, how do I get this person more than 5 friends? And also, how do I make it not that I have to be the friend to everybody? Because that's not going to work. And my recommendation, and I don't even think this is in there, is just having the best small group ministry experience for people, because it's small groups or teams. That's your 2 options. It's the only 2 options, and we know this, and we should be unapologetic about this. Man, we know that if somebody is going to stay in our church, they need to have 7+ friends within 6 months. Cool. I've actually heard of ministries, by the way, who don't let people serve or join a small group within their church within 6 months. You got to wait 6 months to join a team or a small group. That's a church that's not going to be growing. I promise you that. So newcomers who make 2 or less friends within the first 6 months are likely to drop out. Not all groups that grow, and this I'm saying about small groups, not all groups that grow eat together, but all groups that eat together seem to grow. You want growth, actual sustainable longevity when it comes to growing. Have people at your dinner table and help other people have people at their dinner table. The recipe is in Acts. We know this. We say this. We build churches on this. We just need to open up our homes, and we need to help our team understand the importance of opening up our homes. Because here's the reality. Only 3% of churches in America have a team committed to integrating guests. 3% of churches in the United States of America, and again, I understand that there are other countries that are involved in this, so learn from our mistakes. Only 3% of churches in America have a team that's, we would say, next steps or whatever you want to call it, next class, next whatever. And it doesn't need to be a class. It just needs to be a team that helps people go from where they are to getting actually connected. And you need to be able to define how are they connected? Because a lot of times we say, man, I think they're connected. They are connected. They go to our service. Yeah, but somebody can feel surrounded but not supported. We need to make sure people are feeling supported, they're feeling valued, they're feeling seen. 21% of churches have outreach programs, which is what we're talking about in a moment, so that's funny. 68% have a team that oversees worship, 84% for classes and education. So maybe this is an indicator that only 15% of churches in America are growing. So two stats here. Non-growing churches have a retention rate of 9%. Growing churches have a retention rate of 21%. So the big goal here, man, what's our average attendance? And how do we get that same amount of people via first-time guests every single year? So when a guest visits a church twice in 6 weeks, their eventual affiliation rate doubles. So yes, we need to get the same amount of guests every single year as our weekly attendance, but we also need those people. We don't need, by the way, I'm sorry for saying need. I'm correcting myself as I'm communicating. When a guest visits a church twice within 6 weeks, their affiliation rate will double. So our goal is to get those people there twice in 6 weeks. If you do that, they're staying. And again, I'm not guaranteeing this. Don't send me a Venmo request for $10,000 next year because this was wrong. These are just this is just research from a lot of different sources that we will absolutely send to you. Again, Barna is great. Gary McIntosh has so many great stats and research items. But when a guest visits a church 3 times in 6 weeks, their eventual affiliation rate triples. So our goal, again, is that 6-week framework. And it's tough because it's obviously every single week. So there's new people coming every week. And our responsibility is to get them to come back within 6 weeks. We got to get them at least 2 to 3 times. So 3 out of every 100 churches have a class for next steps. This is a huge red flag as no one automatically assimilates. 82% of people leave their church within the first year. So there are two big mistakes when they leave. There are big spikes, 6 to 7 months, and then month 12. So in 6 to 7 months, right there in that time frame, and then month 12, that's when you're going to see huge dips in your attendance. How do we stop this? That first 6 weeks and the first 6 months. So first 6 weeks, we got to get them to come back twice. First 6 months, we got to get them 7 friends. So it's easy as, man, keep coming back. And how do we shape our culture within our team to help them find friends and be a friend? So here's some questions to guide this whole thing. And again, I'm talking really fast here. I did drink a Celsius, so that's probably why. But questions to guide this: can I make friends in this church? Is there a place I can fit in? Does this church really want me? So those are your 3 questions. Can I make friends in this church? Is there a place I can fit in? And does this church really want me? We all want to feel known and needed. That's the recipe. Man, I want to feel known. When I walk into my church, I want to feel known. I want to feel seen. I want to feel like it might not be the pastor, but it is somebody who is finding me and having a conversation with me, knowing my name. And then do they really want me? At the end of the day, man, do I actually make a difference here? If I leave, will this church feel the impact or will they not? And most of the time, no, and that's okay. And that there is a reality to this of, man, we're actually not that big of a deal, but then we are because that's how God moves. So there's just a constant paradox in all of this. I understand that. So for every 100 people, you should have 7 small groups. I said this a couple weeks ago on social media, and I got a lot of messages about it. So here's a church in North Carolina. I won't say the name. The last 20 years, they went from 800 people to 8,000 people. Literally in the last 20 years, they have not had less than 80% of their Sunday or Wednesday attendance in a small group. You tell me if that is not an absolute assimilated, connected church. I'm telling you what, man, we got to have groups available for people. We got to have, and again, I say groups in a general term because it could be a team, it could be a group, it could be whatever. But my last thing here for this, you want a culture of growth, be committed to growth, because the reality is you don't get to delegate culture. You are the culture, and anything you delegate could be a task, could be a responsibility, but you don't delegate culture. Culture is in you, and whatever is in you will come out of you, and whatever is coming out of you, your team will replicate. So if you're seeing negative characteristics in your team, it's because it came out of you. So why people aren't inviting is because you aren't inviting. Why people aren't being friendly is because you're not probably being friendly. So culture is anything you create or tolerate. And in this context, man, we can't tolerate mean people. I don't know how to say that in a more sexy way, but man, if you're being mean and you're just rude and you can't put a smile on your face on a Sunday, man, we can't tolerate that because we're trying to create a move of God, and this is where we're going, and we need to be inviting. We need to be, and again, you need to be. That's what I'm trying to say. Just as much as I need to be in my context with our church. So whoever controls culture, by the way, is the most important person in your church. Whoever controls the culture, whoever polices the culture, I promise you, is the most powerful and influential person in your church. So just a quick quote here. I can't get anyone to join my team. No, you can't get anyone to join you. And it's our responsibility to be the type of person, not fake it till you make it, because people will smell through that. Last note here, and then we're going to talk about outreach and social media stuff. But man, we got to be the people that somebody would want to actually get coffee with, actually actually be a friend with. And if you can't laugh with them, I promise you, you can't build with them. So let's jump into outreach. Let's get fun with outreach. This is my world, man. This is not in the church context, actually. I don't know if I've ever been in an actual outreach social media role in a church, but I've definitely done it out. So if you were to hold up, this is to get basic and simple. If you were to hold up a flag with one word and it has the beacon of hope and call to action for your city, what would that one word be? There was a question a couple weeks ago that I was a part of, and somebody asked, so I'm on the marketing team for my church. How do I brand God if that's what I'm supposed to do online? Or how do I brand my pastor? Both of those are wrong. One, you can't brand God. Good luck with that. And then 2, We don't want to build the church off of our pastor's face. When I said that earlier. So what do? Man, when we close our eyes, we picture our city. I'm in Ventura County. When I think about the city I live in, man, if I was to hold up a flag that the whole city saw and they saw it and it needs to ignite an emotion to get them to not just come to church, but come to Jesus, man, what would that one word that would instill emotion in them to make that decision? Whatever that word is to you, shape your whole brand around that. You want to shape your whole brand around one word. You think about Apple, their one word is beauty. I had a great conversation with Nancy Duarte last week. With her company's called Duarte. Their whole thing is belonging. That's their one word. So when we have one word, we can actually learn to shape culture. So I'm going to say it again, and I want you to think about it. And maybe next week we can have a dialogue about this. But man, if you were to hold up a flag with one word and it was the only beacon of hope for your city and it actually ignited enough emotion to follow Jesus, what would that one word be? And that one word should shape your brand. You aren't branding a pastor. And if you are a pastor, I promise you, you can't be branded because you're a human being. I'm not a brand. I'm Josh. I'm just a human being. So a lot of teams are doing sermon clips as their only social strategy. Man, that's not going to work. I promise you. We need to get better at telling the story of Jesus and the story of our church. So what story are you telling? Man, if I go to your Instagram, what story am I seeing, or what story am I now trying to participate in? Because your story is honey to the lips. Man, someone's going online, they're looking at your website, they're looking at every single thing you do, and they're trying to see if they fit in the story you're telling. Most of the time, by the way, they cannot fit into that story because our default is to look at other churches and go, well, they're just doing sermon clips. I should do sermon clips. Sermon clips don't work. I promise you they do not. Your story is honey to the lips. So how to get people, here's how you get better at telling your story online, because I don't want to just offer a problem and offer a solution to you. Understand your distinction. So what makes you distinct? What makes your church, what makes your ministry, what makes your business distinct in your city, not globally, not in the nation, just in your city? What makes you so distinct? And whatever that is, I promise you, that's the beginning phase of understanding how to tell your story online. And number two, sit in your pain and find all the problems. Especially in the church context, man, sit in the pain of your city and find all the problems. Don't just jump to solutions. We're so quick to jump to solutions, especially in the marketing world. Don't. Just sit in the problems. Obviously, hype is not enough. We know this. You have to have a distinct insight. Anytime you would meet with a venture capitalist, they would say, man, what is your distinct insight into the market? And most of the time when you have a distinct insight in the market, by the way, you're not actually understood. And we're not trying to be understood. I don't want to be understood. I don't care about other pastors liking me. I care about reaching people. So what makes you distinct? How do we tell that story that's captivating? So what makes your church unique, and how are you telling the story online? So last couple notes here, and then we'll wrap up, I promise. Last 3 minutes. I'll make it super fast. Stop. Social media is your front door, and we know that most people make a decision on if they're attending your service again after the first impression. So your social media is your front door. And again, if we're telling the proper story, they're going to see it, be excited, and participate. A couple notes here about social media, and then a couple positive notes. We'll start with bad, end with good. Stop inviting people to things online. Stop inviting people on social media. It's a cold call. We hate being cold called, but we post these graphics, or we post these invites. Social media is not a place to invite people to your services. Social media is inviting people to your story, your brand. No more invitations online. I promise you, your ministry will grow, your people will grow, your authority will grow online. Stop preaching to deaf ears. That's what I'm saying about sermon clips. You're preaching to deaf ears. People are trying to scroll and they're numbing out, and you're not stopping them. I promise you, you're not. And don't also be that cringe, and this will be in a while, the cringe, super aggressive hook in the first 3 seconds. First 3 seconds is important. We'll talk about that, but we don't want to be cringe, and we definitely don't want to preach to deaf ears. Very practical here. Stop with bad graphics. No content is better than bad content. I had a conversation with a business a couple weeks ago, and their brand is so inconsistent. They use 10 different fonts. Their stuff's just all over the place. I'm like, dude, just stop. Just stop posting content. I promise you it's going to help your brand more than hurt it. So, a couple great things here. Share content that tells the story. Be consistent on creating shareability. If your content isn't being shared, you aren't reaching people. UGC content, by the way, is the best church content. You need to There are Gen Zers in your church. There are people in your church, I promise you, who know how to make content because they watch TikTok 10 hours a day. Man, give them a phone, give them a camera, and just tell them to create something. Hey, this is the framework. So this is our brand guidelines. So that's the framework. Now, within that framework, you have the freedom to create to help people understand the story that is being told online. So practical. First 3 seconds should be so engaging. People want to stay, but not the cringe hooks. Gen Z sees through all your insecurities. We got to be real online. We got to be real. Again, that's our story. Our story is not of perfection, but of authenticity. Know the difference, know the dimensions, and don't have any weird black screens or overlays. I'm working with a company right now. They're an art studio in London. They're so psychotic about the black screens on their videos at the very end or the very beginning. And we like those cool videos that pop up, but the black screens are killing off, one, your engagement, and two, it's not convincing enough for people to actually want to watch it. So brand is everything. We know this. It's all your story. The last note here, and then if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat right now of any brand marketing questions, anything to do with honestly, anything. I don't care. And if you don't, that's totally cool too. Bamboo, it takes 7 years of watering for it to grow. So you think online, you think via social media that something's going to grow. We're in the waiting business. We understand that. And crazy growth is not sustainable growth. We know this. And one note, none of us know the launch date of Celsius. Do you know this? If you do, put it in the chat. You don't know the launch date of Celsius. So we overemphasize launching. We underemphasize sustaining. Man, if we just tell our story, and we understand that, man, if we tell a captivating enough story, I promise you, people will see it, people will participate in it, and people want to be a part of it. Two notes. When you have integrity of your ministry, your ministry gets better every year. And what others think of you is none of your business, especially online. I see chat. I'm assuming it's Christian because he's the boy. He's the man. What would be your follow-up process after a visitor comes? How to do it without being overwhelming with them too much info at the first get-go. Yes, follow-up strategy. So when I think about a follow-up strategy in the church, I've done this so much with businesses that I think it actually is relevant. So when I lived in Omaha, I had 200 clients that I met with, and my responsibility was to help them go from an awareness phase to an advocate phase. So there's a bunch of different steps in that, and I would say for you, write that down. Awareness is how did I find you? An advocate for your brand is somebody who is actually sharing, like, man, you need to come to this event. You need to come to this service. It's going to change your life. There's obviously a lot of steps in between that, and I would recommend you to figure out what those steps are. The follow-up process, I think, is step 2. Obviously, awareness, and then, man, how do we get them to be aware of us, but not, like you said, overwhelmed? Obviously, email doesn't work. Email marketing in general doesn't work, by the way. I know that because I emailed 10 of you and 4 of you showed up. So email marketing is not it. Text is great, but the timing on this is super important. One, if you guys don't know, Gloo, Gloo, I actually work with a startup within them. They have a free texting platform that's literally free, and they will never charge you. They don't even ask your credit card. So Text in Church, all those are great, but stop spending your money on that. Gloo is so far superior. You get your own phone number, that's everything. I would say, when you think about, man, if I'm a first-time guest, let's put it in our context, us 4. I just went to a church for the first time, went to their 9 a.m. service. I filled out the Connect card, which most people aren't going to fill out that card. So the trick, by the way, is to actually meet them in the lobby or meet them in service, not just hope that they fill out a Connect card, because they won't. So the people who do fill out the Connect card, I would do either when they're on their way home, because we're urgent with an invite, and then I would not message them until the Thursday or Friday, asking them to either fill out something or get their information to save them a seat on that second time. Because we know, like I said, if we can get them the second time within 6 weeks, they're gonna stay at least a year. So it's our responsibility to get them to come the second time. The second time, man, it starts with a personal invite. And then if somebody didn't get their number and we have their number, we can send out that mass text message and invite them into, yes, coming to service, but they need to actually walk in and feel known and needed. Like I said, man, that starts week 1. We got to see our guests, especially if you're under 250 people. There should not be one person being missed. I promise you. It's a culture thing, and it's definitely a huge problem, in my opinion, in the church of not having proper follow-up and being people who follow up. Like, man, if I say, man, we should get coffee, we're getting coffee. Pull out your calendar right now. Don't be the person who does that. So I'll read the question again just so I make sure I communicate it correctly. What would your follow-up process after a visitor comes? How to do it without being overwhelming or overwhelming them with too much information? What's your one call to action? Should always have one call to action. Every service, every team night, every small group, every text message, every email, every social media story. Don't do a post. One call to action. What is the one thing that you're doing?